Tonight on Penned the Writer's Utopia. Oh man, listen, guys, I have an amazing guest with me tonight. She is an author, a playwright, a comedian, and so much more. And you don't want to miss it, okay? So, you know what to do. Go ahead, like, and share this broadcast because I promise you, someone needs the inspiration and the information that we're sharing tonight. It's Penned, the Writer's Utopia, baby. Come on in. Welcome to Penned the Writer's Utopia. Listen, did you miss me last week? I know I missed you guys. But listen, I came back this week with a phenomenal guest. I cannot even name everything she does all by myself because she's just that phenomenal, guys. She is a broadcaster, she's a playwright, she's a comedian, she's a public speaking coach. Wait a minute, and there's so much more. And most importantly, she's an author. I would just say she's a writer all around, guys. She is none other than Miss Gwenno Dafydd. Welcome, Gwenno. How are
Hi,
you?
I'm not as energetic as I usually am because it is 1 o'clock in the morning for us in Great Britain, and I'm here
Yeah,
in Wales. But apart from that, I'm really happy to be with you. I really am. Thank you for
awesome
inviting
sauce.
me.
You are so welcome. Thank you for staying up and partying with me tonight because it is a late night for you. But hey, maybe we can make it seem like we're in a comedy club tonight, and so we're just serving up some good information and some good laugh for people. How about that?
Well, let's get the alcohol in that case, because you have to have alcohol in a good comedy club.
Yes. So tell I there's so many layers to you, right? And I don't even think I was able to give you the justice you deserved when we opened. So can you share with our audience a little bit about yourself and how you got started?
Where do I begin? Well, I was born in North Wales in a hospital called St David's Hospital. We lived in North Wales for 7 years, then we moved to Pembrokeshire. And when I was 8 years of age, that was the very first time that I realised that I could write. And I won a competition throughout Wales for writing under the age of 8. And it was open to all school children in Wales. And so that was my first writing success. I then went into primary, secondary school in West Wales and went to be a physical education teacher and had a major upset the first term I was there and had to change direction because I couldn't be a physical education teacher. I had an arthritic condition of the kneecaps, so changed to doing drama and Welsh. I've always had a passion for drama. I've always had a passion for making people laugh. And I suppose from a point of view of writing, I started writing lyrics when I was 17 years old, and I've written lyrics throughout my life. So I suppose I've had two major forms of work. One of always been in the creative industries, and then I've always had another parallel career in knowledge transfer. So we can have a little look at both sides if you want. Take a pick. Where do you want to start?
Yes, yes. Listen, I love it when I have people that come on because I always say you learn if you pay attention, there's a lot of things that we do when we're children, just
Oh, yeah.
naturally, how natural gifts come out. And as we grow, if we nurture them, not sometimes, and sometimes we forget, and then we get older and we find ourselves right in that path. And so for you to be a writer at such a young age, winning competitions, and then having a life that was built around writing, so to speak, like writing everything you've done from theater to broadcasting to writing your book, even to comedy, because you got to write your jokes, right? All of
Yeah.
that stuff turns right back around and it circles back to writing. And I think that's so amazing with the body of work that you have accomplished. That is just amazing to me.
Well, thank you. I'm used by the Welsh Assembly government to go to schools as a role model and mentor for young people. And one of the things to encourage entrepreneurship, and I talk about my life and my working achievements. And one of the things I say to them is find your passion, make it
Yeah.
your profession, and you will never work another day. And it's really interesting. That I also, as a coach, when I say to people when they're lost and they don't really know which direction to go to, I say, what did you spend a lot of time doing when you were in your teenage years? That's where you will find those things that make you happy, because if you spend a lot of time on them, you become good at them. And
Yep.
that's where you should be looking about a potential way of monetizing. I hate that word, but it just means
Yeah.
making some money from it. So essentially, yeah. So those three things really were always present in my childhood: the singing,
Mm-hmm.
singing and performing, because I always used to love taking the comic roles, singing, performing, writing, and coaching. Those three things really were always there.
Yeah.
So performing, writing, coaching.
Coaching, yeah,
Yeah.
amazing. So I'm going to peel back some of your layers bit by bit, because I feel like I told you before we started, I said, oh my gosh, you have so many layers. I know that someone is going to benefit. So many different people are going to benefit tonight. So I want to start with broadcasting. And you have over 40 years in broadcasting.
I
What
do.
was that like?
Varied, interesting, challenging. Basically, it started when I left college and I went to Brussels, and I was an au pair, and there was an advert on the television, on the radio actually, saying that they were looking for an au pair in Brussels. And I was going to try and get a job as a governess in Canada at the time. And my mother saw this job and she said, why don't you apply? So I thought, okay. And all I knew about Brussels was Brussels sprouts. I knew nothing about Belgium, nothing at all. I went there. I got the job, went there, and because it was advertised on the radio, they got in touch with me and wanted me to talk about my experiences. And because I'd studied broadcasting in college, I thought, now then, how about if I get in touch with you, send you items of interest about things that are happening in Belgium, and I can talk about them. And they liked this idea. So I used to regularly write letters to them then, because you didn't have email, you didn't have, so I'd
Right.
write a letter to them and tell them about something interesting that was happening in Belgium. And they would phone me and I would talk about it. So that's how I got into it, very slowly. And then when I came back from Belgium, and when I was in Belgium, I did a variety of things. I did, and I think as a writer, it's crucial that you are able to have an insight into lots of different working environments. And I did. I was a governess, I was an au pair, I worked in an old people's home, I worked in restaurants, I actually painted and decorated, I babysat. But the one thing I did do was I started working as a busker. I was a street singer. So all of those things gave me the experiences which fed into my creativity as
Yeah.
a writer. And
Mm-hmm.
I started really writing lyrics then. And I was very useless to start off with, very useless. But some of the things that I wrote at that time, it's really bizarre. There's one of the things I believe very strongly in is authenticity. And I
Mm-hmm.
wrote this line when I was about 21, and it said, be yourself at any cost. Any other way, you're lost. Can't be no one but you. And it's very strange that I've just recently been commissioned with my writing partner to write an anthem for women. And
Okay.
it's the anthem is going to be called Sock It to Them Sister. And it's all about our authenticity as women. And if we really want to get far in life, we've got to we've got to really hang on to who we are and try not to be anybody other than who we are.
Yeah.
I'm Gwenno from West Wales. I never try to be anything but me. I'm as authentic as you get. It cut me through my centre. I'm Welsh through and through. I don't pretend to be anything but that. So anyway, where was I? I do tend to drift off,
It's okay. You kind of led us a trail as to how all that came together with all of your experiences and how it contributed to your writing. But you're so right. Even in bringing up authenticity, you're still on point, because in our writing, that's how people connect with us. People can tell when they're reading your writing and it does not seem authentic. They can tell when you're a fraud, basically. And they can sense the authenticity in what you're writing. And I think people connect more with that the more you are authentic. Why am I getting stuck on that word? But yeah, you get what I'm saying.
I do. And I agree totally with you. And I think having been brought up in a family of 4 kids who were constantly fighting with each other, there was you couldn't be pretentious. Yeah. And also, my mother always used to say to me, "Oh, goodness me, you're always talking with those children from the council estate." But I wanted to find out about how people from council estates thought, how they functioned. I really feel very comfortable in talking to anybody in life. I will talk to a tramp on a street. I have no problems at all. And I've been talking to prime ministers.
Yeah.
It doesn't faze me at all, because as far as I'm concerned, we are all as worthy as each other. And I think that boils down to having been brought up as a Christian. I'm not a very good Christian, but I'm trying my hardest. But as in my interpretation of who Christ was he was the very first equal opportunities officer.
Yeah.
So, he dealt with everybody in the same way, treat everybody in the way that you would want to be treated. Yeah. So that's how I approach life.
Awesome.
Okay. We've got some great stories to tell you as well. That's the thing. I've never missed out on any great stories because I'm always there with people finding out about them,
Exactly. And it makes it that much more, I don't want to say entertaining, but entertaining and relatable. I'll say them both.
Yep.
Entertaining and relatable. Okay, so we talked about broadcasting and we're rounding our corner now. Let's look at theater. How was it writing and working in theater?
Well, there are 2 aspects of theatre that I've worked in. I haven't worked in mainstream theatre. I worked predominantly in theatre and education, which was a combination of theatre and going into schools. Now, I don't know whether that exists in America, but in Wales in the 80s, we had a very, very vibrant theatre and education community. And when I came back from Belgium, I'd been performing. I'd gone from busking. I'd had concerts. I had gigs. And I was on the television. And then my brother sadly died. So I came back to Wales from Belgium. Okay. And I was offered an opportunity to take part in a theatre and education project in Pembrokeshire, which is where I'm from. So I jumped at the chance and I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. We made it up as we went along. But we did have to write scripts, and I had to write scripts for the performances. We had to write scripts for the teachers, for the packs, the educational packs that we were sending out. So I did that for a very long time, and I became a pioneer of using theatre as a method of developing a second language, which was the Welsh language, which is my first language. So, and I was probably at that time one of the very first female theatre and education directors in Wales. There weren't many of us, but I didn't see, I didn't feel as if there was a glass ceiling there or anything. I just got on with a job and did it to the best of my ability. But I was also performing at the same time. So I managed to, it was a tremendous experience, an apprenticeship really, because I had to try and do everything, write the scripts, drive the van, sort out the costumes, do everything. It was great. It was really good.
And well, I was about to say well diverse. I'm sure you got tons of experience from
Oh yeah,
just that alone. To be able to work in all different aspects is amazing because you're
yeah,
literally learning theater through and through. So that alone is just amazing. And actually, yes, we do have different programs here. Usually the local theaters will actually host youth programs. I know that at one point in time, I was participating in theater for at-risk youth. So to give the children a way to kind of put their energy to, the
yeah,
things come out and put their positive energy towards something, regardless of what they've been through. So it was pretty amazing and pretty interesting just to see theater being used as therapy, so to speak.
yeah.
So absolutely, I'm familiar with that. So that too is very amazing.
Yeah, and the other aspect, as I was just saying about theatre, so the theatre and education formed a great part of it. The other part was musical theatre, or I did a lot of cabaret type of things with Bertolt Brecht and Kurt Weill, and lots of international songs. So I did lots of cabaret type things as well, and that would be the other type of theatre that I actually did a lot of, which I've done that throughout my career, really.
Man, music and writing, you're just the fabric of your life. You're the fabric of
Oh
your
yeah.
life. So now we're rounding the corner to the meat and potatoes, I would say, of tonight's topic, which is writing for comedy. So you wrote an amazing book with some amazing input from women all over the world.
Yep.
Sock it to them, sister. Yes, stand up and sock it to them, sister. Funny, feisty females. What was that like? I know I've talked to you about it, but tell our audience, what was that journey like talking to with female comedians all over the world, and what was the inspiration behind the project?
Okay, I'll start off with where did it start? So it started when I was in my mid-30s. I had become a mother, and I found it really difficult to maintain the working environment that I had, which was I filmed away a lot, and I did 6 months theatre and education away from base. So my husband was working away, so I decided to go and do a master's degree in women's studies because I'm passionate about women and women's development,
Yes.
and I wanted to direct films ultimately. That didn't happen. However, when I did the master's degree, I had to do a thesis about women working in a non-traditional male environment.
Mm-hmm.
So as I loved comedy and I'd done loads of comic roles in my filming, what I decided to do was to look at women in stand-up comedy, and found that there were only 10 to 15% of all stand-up comics that were female. So that was the starting point. And for the actual thesis, I interviewed 5 women, 3 of who were very famous in Britain at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then that expanded. I had tremendous feedback from people saying, oh, you should publish a book, you should publish a book, blah. And if I'd known then how long it was going to take, I would have said, no, thank you. It did take me 20 years. However, I interviewed 94 people involved in comedy throughout the world. 65 of those were women. And so I interviewed people like people in America would be, for example, Amy Schumer or Joan Rivers, and people who weren't quite so well known, but they were pioneers in their own field. Like there were Latino comics. And so I tried to get as wide a variety as possible. I got the world's oldest, the world's youngest, the world's smallest, the world's tallest, probably. I got somebody from India. Well, I had 2 people from India, 1 from Greece, and all of these are pioneers. And so what the book is really, there hadn't been a book just to celebrate women in comedy throughout our times. And so it starts in the time of Mary Lloyd, which is the music hall, and it goes all the way through. So there's a chapter on the history of women in comedy. And women have always been present in making comedy, but they haven't been as numerous as men.
Yes.
So that's part of the book. But another part of the book is looking at the reasons why women aren't as prolific. And there are numerous reasons. But it's full of stories about women and their lives and the challenges that they've overcome. And so these are amazing role models for aspiring female comics. So
Yes.
I tried to make it as light as possible. However, I wanted it to really destroy the myth that women aren't funny. And the myth has been created by men because comedy is a very powerful tool. If you look around, comedy makes a lot of money, you know, and
Yes, it does.
it certainly does, you know, and those who are good in it get to have very good standards of living. They get their own television shows,
Yep.
etc., etc., etc.
Mhm.
So, you know, the barriers stopping women from progressing are very numerous and quite invisible. And in fact, the glass ceiling in whichever environment that you would go to, they would be exactly the same. Things like sexual harassment, fear of working in environments that are not safe for women, late at night, you know,
Yeah.
politics. Some of these barriers are in every single working environment.
Yes.
So it's not full of jokes. You know, it was never intended to be full of jokes, but it is a handbook and a guidebook for anyone, a female who wants to embrace that lifestyle, because it's not an easy one. But if you're
And I
funny,
love
you're
that.
funny. You
Yeah.
can't help. You just want to get out there and make people laugh. You know, you can't help it. But whether you might end up doing stand-up comedy is another thing. I mean, this gives you a real feel of what it's like and why people still do it. You know, they do it because they love it. They love
Yeah.
making people laugh. I love making people laugh. And if I were a bit livelier, I'd be making you laugh at the moment. But I'm a bit dozy.
I've chuckled at you a couple times tonight. I've chuckled a couple times, but I love the whole idea behind the book. I love that because, you know, like it's almost like it's not a laughing matter, but at the same time you're funny, but here's what you have to face and here's what we're looking at. So it's almost like you said, a handbook. And I love that you took that approach to it, as to say, if you want a career in this, know that it can be done. But you didn't just take one point of view. You took women. You took women that were killing it in the business. You took women that were just starting out. Like, you have an array of women that have contributed their take and their point of view. So it's kind of like something for everyone in the book. And I love the approach that you took with that. I really feel like you guys, listen, for those of you who are watching, whether you're watching live or the replay, make sure, and we'll be sure to get you the information before this episode is over, that you connect with Gweno or get a copy of the book, especially if you're looking to be a comedian and you want to go the stand-up route, or just in general. Take this handbook. It's not just Gweno's point of view. She's like did the work for you. She's gotten you mentors from all over the world in the business to help encourage you. So you definitely want to get a copy of that in your hands. All right, you guys. So Gweno, one thing I want to ask about, because we talked about writing comedy. So what are a few tips? Because, you know, we're rounding the corner and time always flies when we're having fun, but I want to make sure we leave the people with something. So what are some of the gems you've gotten in writing that would be helpful to someone that's starting out in comedy or want to be a comedian? What are some tips and tricks that you can give them just about creating their sets and so forth?
Get on a comedy course, because I've potched about with doing stand-up comedy over the years. I've had a character called Boadicea, Queen of HRT. But what has really pushed me forward with my writing this year is going on a comedy course, because it has saved my life during during COVID. Every week I have been on one, if not two, comedy courses. I have a fantastic coach. He is called Rob Hitchmo, and Hitchmuth, actually, I can't remember how to say his name, Rob Hitchmuth. And he's on, you check him out on Facebook. He is absolutely fantastic. I call him the boss, because every single week he gives us a task and we have to write. And he has always maintained that the people who do well in the comedy industry are those who write regularly. So he will give us a task every single week. We have to apply ourselves. So one week might be to take a nursery rhyme. We did nursery rhymes, for example. We have to deconstruct it and look at it in a different way. So there's three types of comedy, by the way. You've got the superiority, you've got the incongruity, and you've got the relief. Now, let me just walk you through them, right? So incongruity is something that doesn't make sense. It's like, it's very strange. And that's what makes people laugh, because it's a little bit askew from normality. Superiority is a sort of humor that men tend to like a lot, because it's about kicking somebody's ass. It's about putting somebody down. And then you've got the release one, and that's the sort of comedy that that undertakers and doctors and anybody who is in a pressurized situation will release. They'll need that release. But there's a difference as well between men and women's comedy. Men are particularly articulate and fluent in the language of wit. So they become very fluent in it. That's how they communicate. They banter jokes off each other. Women, when they get together, they communicate in truth. And so they will tell stories about their lives. So, but you've always got to have a punchline at the end. You've got to have a payoff. So you've got to have a setup and a payoff. So you've got to set up the story with the information in it. You have a pause, then you do the punch. Okay, so or the payoff, it's called, whatever. So it might not be a punch that way, but it'll be the now I'm expecting you to laugh. So what you do is you have a little break in between the setup, you pause, you deliver the punchline, and then you also pause to have the laughter. And that's what's been really difficult, because I've done a couple of Zoom comedy things, and I really haven't enjoyed them in any way at all, because basically you haven't got a live audience. Yeah. So I would recommend, if you're starting out now, don't bother doing a Zoom comedy thing, because, that is really for the experts. I can't do it. I've done lots of live comedy. I can handle that, but Zoom comedy at the moment, no. If you're a beginner, you'd be going out your depth. So write.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right.
And try it out with
your friend. Writing comedy, you gotta write. It all starts with writing.
And it's not just the writing, it's the rewriting. Because, and the tip that Joan Rivers gave me was record it so that you can hear whether it's funny,
Yeah.
Try it out on your friends. Try it out in the pub. And also what you do as well, you recycle. So you've got your regular stuff that works. You try it out. It really is good. What you do is you slip in a new joke in the middle, so that that it's guaranteed success. Above it, guaranteed success. Try it in the middle. See what happens. So
that's good.
There's loads of ways you can do it. It's like any sort of writing. I wrote a play about the Falklands War, and that was just because I saw something about somebody smuggling packets of drum tobacco. You can find a stimulus for comedy anywhere. But as you mentioned truth earlier on, and authenticity, people will actually, if you can make a subject universal, then that is really key, because, people have various taboos. There's certain things that I would never want to make jokes about, like child incest or child abuse. Some of those things are really off limit for me, but they wouldn't be for other people. But the trick is, if you can make it a universal thing that all of us as human beings can relate to, then you're on to a winner. Really.
Awesome sauce. That's some good gems. Listen, and she's such a professional, because she did that in probably 5 minutes or less, that she gave you all those good gems. You have to go back, rewind, and watch it again just to pick up all she did, because she did some good stuff. Listen.
Yeah.
But that was good. So find universal topics, that repurposing your content, that works in so many different industries and on so many different levels. But repurposing your content and putting something new in the middle. I love what you said. It guarantees success. Listen, so if you trying out a new joke and you're not sure if it's gonna stand, don't bomb your whole set with all new material. Repurpose some of your old material, feed it in so you still have success. I love that. And then the one that I absolutely love, because as writers, this is what we do: write, hold on, and then rewrite. All great gems. So for those who are seeking a copy of your book, Gweno, how can they get their hands on a copy of Stand Up, Sock It to Them, Sister?
Well, it is available on Amazon, I believe, but I am thinking about relaunching it in a different manner. There are companies, there's a company in America that's been selling it. I believe they've got about 100 copies left.
Awesome.
The main thing really is, if they're interested, get in touch with me, and I will just, if they're in Britain, I can send them a copy, and it's £15, but I'm not quite sure how I would manage with America. I do need to get in touch with the American publishers out there. But I do have PDF copies if you wanted to have one that way. That would maybe be the easiest way.
Okay. Awesome sauce. Awesome. And then you can always, as we popped up, make sure you go out to her website. That's www.gwenodafeet.co.uk. You can follow her over on her website, find out all the amazing things that she has going on, and keep up with her. Because, baby, I don't know if you heard, but I heard she's a very busy woman. She's doing some spectacular things out there and doing many great works for the community. So we want to make sure that we follow her, keep up with her. You are on LinkedIn, so you can get with her on LinkedIn. Just go to her name, Gweno Dafeet. And where else? Are you on Instagram too,
Gweno? I am. Yes, okay. I sent you the link. It's again, Instagram. It's Gweno David. So it's GWENODAFYDD.
There you go. Make sure you connect with her. And you know what we do here in the Utopia family. Go ahead. If you have enjoyed the information that Gweno has shared with us tonight, go on and put that hand clap in the comments so she can feel the love tonight. All right. And Gweno, before we go, is there one last nugget of wisdom that you want to impart to our viewers tonight before we go?
I do. Be persistent and never, ever, ever give up. It took me 20 years to get this book published. It took me from the age of 21 to 62 to get my show about Edith Piaf in the West End. Never give up. That's what I say. Never.
I love it. Never give up. Keep being persistent. Because guess what? She said it took her 20 years. That means she was 20 years younger when she started. It doesn't matter what your age is. No, and that's not even the play on your age. It's just real. We have such high hopes when we're younger, and then we feel like if we don't accomplish it by a certain age that it can't be done. But oh my goodness, look at all that she's done. And when she wrote it 20 years later, she has so much more to add and so much more wisdom to add to it. So don't give up. I love that nugget. That was fantastic, Gweno. Well, listen, guys, we have so appreciated you guys tuning in tonight. Thank you guys for the love. Thank you so much to our faithful fans who are often joining us in the comments. We thank you. Even if you watch it as a replay, go on and type replay in the comments. Let us know if you have questions. We'll monitor and make sure we get them answered for you, because she's a wealth of knowledge, guys. She's a writer in many different mediums, and she's a wealth of knowledge. And we definitely want to make sure your questions get answered. So Gweno, thank you so much for joining me tonight in our nightclub, because it's 1 a.m. there. So thank you so much for staying up and joining us in the Utopia. We certainly appreciate you. Thank you guys for watching. It's been phenomenal. I hope you've enjoyed it. And now that you have all of this great information, I want you to go ahead and use it and write something great. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your support. And I'll see you guys next week. Bye now.
Bye.